I was working 80 hours a week, drowning in meetings. My calendar looked like Tetris, every slot filled, no room to breathe, with my personal goals suffocating on the sideline. My catchphrase, say it with me, I don't have enough time. Then I became a scientist with my workload, surgically removing tasks until my workload was cut in half. And here's the crazy part, nobody noticed. Today I'm going to show you the exact system that I used to save over 40 hours of my week without getting fired, demoted, or even questioned. And I didn't do this just once. I used this method 3 times, and it was the main reason why I was able to work for 3 Fortune 500 companies at the same time. This isn't for the faint of heart because most people secretly love being busy. It gives them a solid excuse not to make progress outside of work. But once you reclaim those hours, you will have no excuses left but to stare down starting a business, that book you wanted to write, or that side hustle that you keep putting off until someday. So if you're ready to run out of excuses, let's go. First off, we need to become a scientist with our time. No more will we be passive observers, and instead we'll start to question everything and run experiments. Now I'm going to assume you've already done this, but the highest level is to do a time audit. We need to understand exactly where our time is going on a daily basis. There's this great study that was done in the late 90s on a group of heavily overweight people who had been trying to lose weight. And they were asked to guesstimate how many calories they were consuming on a daily basis. And then researchers followed them to calculate exactly how many calories they were actually eating. And the difference between the guess and what they were actually eating was over 1,000 calories. That's basically the equivalent of eating an entire pizza but forgetting. Now this sounds absurd, but this is basically the same thing that we do with our time. Scroll a little on our phones and suddenly an hour magically disappears. And I guarantee you that just by tracking our time, it will reveal at least 1 hour where we're wasting time doom scrolling or surfing on the internet that can be reallocated to make progress towards those bigger goals. And it's really as simple as getting a pen and paper and writing down when you start a task and when you end throughout the whole day. And once we've found the obvious time gaps, we can start to narrow in on a granular level. Open up your calendar and look at all of the meetings. Are you actually critically needed for those meetings? If you missed them, would anyone say anything? Don't just assume, test it. For starters, what I did was not show up for meetings. Not all in one day, but I was strategic and chose a different meeting every single day not to show up to. Say nothing to anybody, but just miss it. And one won't get you fired. Trust me, just have an excuse ready if anyone asks you where you were. A plumber, an emergency phone call, your dad's osteoporosis, name dropping specific diseases always works. Now, most meetings you will probably be called out for missing, but there's definitely 1 or 2 that you will go completely unnoticed. Make a note of that. And then the next time that meeting comes up, you can do one of 2 things. The first being just keep skipping it until someone calls you out, or the second, if you know someone in the meeting, just message them and tell them that you're heads down on another task and aren't going to be able to join, and if there's any takeaways or questions for you, to just send a message afterwards. Boom, you've just clawed back at least a half hour of your time. Then start to do this with every single one of your work tasks. Whenever something comes in, question it. Do I really need to do this? What's the point of this? For instance, at 2 of my jobs, I was a salaried employee, but still weekly had to submit timesheets. And I would go about doing them dutifully until one week I just forgot and no one said anything. So then the following week, I didn't do it. And 8 months later, I hadn't submitted a single one and my boss sent me a message. And it turns out that these timesheets were purely for accounting purposes for the giant mega corporation that I worked for to get more tax write-offs. So I asked my boss if the numbers even really mattered. He said they didn't. So I just went through the past 32 weeks and submitted 2 on every single one of the timesheets. And then he bulk approved them and I went on with my day. And just by not doing this, I saved myself 10 minutes every single week, which doesn't sound like much, but over the course of 8 months, this was 5 hours of time that I gave back to myself. And this example shows us something that is critically important that we often forget. Not everything needs to be done well. You can save so much time by recognizing the tasks that don't actually matter that much and doing just the bare minimum to get them done. And there's an easy way to find out what actually matters. Ask your boss. They will see this as a sign of initiative and happily list out those core assignments that you're hired to do. Then, once you have that list, take a look at your calendar and see which one of those meetings don't match into that core list of responsibilities. And if they don't match, don't go to them. Just say that you are heads down working on one of those core assignments that your boss told you to work on. And then go back and look at all of those tasks that you're doing. Again, if they don't fit, don't do them, delegate them to someone else. Now, this sounds simple in theory, and you would think that you would get pushback for this, but most people accept it. They see that your time and effort is being placed somewhere else, and they understand that you don't have the extra bandwidth to work on it. And what your boss really has just given you is a get out of work free card for anything else not in that list. So use it. This will save you a ton of time. And then critically, in the future, if a meeting pops up or someone tells you to do something, again, if it's not within that core, don't do it. And for the love of God, so many things we do at work are the result of anxiety. We think we need to go above and beyond just to stay employed. But now we know what the core responsibility is, so we don't have to question it. We know the minimum viable work needed, so just do that. Really that simple. You don't need to be a hero. Anything above that minimum line is really just wasting time. Okay, but you won't get promoted. True, but why do you even want that promotion in the first place? What it usually means is drastically more work for slightly more pay. The pay that you're looking for to get a new house, a new car, things that you're using to impress people that you don't actually care about. But deep down, also we know that when we get those things, it won't make a difference. But what will make a difference is pursuing those soul crafts, those things that you've wanted to do since you were a little kid but pushed to the side because you're too busy. Again, you'll see a repeating theme. Question everything. Don't just take it for granted. So now you know what that core workload is, try to be as efficient as possible within those tasks. Every time we start working, there should be a clear goal and a clear deadline time-wise for when we want this to be completed. And at every point, we should be giving ourselves less time than we think we actually need just to let that deadline pressure push us to do things faster. You know about Parkinson's law, but you don't use it. And if you really want to be insane, every time you start working, set a timer and then do not switch tasks. Only do that thing until you have completed it. And for everything we do repeatedly, make a checklist. This not only makes your work more consistent, but it speeds up the process because you don't have to remember all the steps involved in completing it. And then for tasks that are similar, batch them together. Don't do things in a drip format. The biggest offender of this is email. I swear, people check their email 20 times a day and they forget the most important thing about email, that it's an asynchronous communication platform. People don't expect an immediate reply to email. So if you have email notifications on, please for the love of God, turn them off. They're so distracting and unnecessary. And then choose 2 or 3 times during the day to check your email. And then take 10 or 20 minutes to go through and answer every single one of the emails and then forget about it until that next moment. Now, if you've done all this, you have clawed back a significant amount of your time, easily hours, but if you don't use them strategically, then you'll end up right back where you started. And particularly in the beginning, when we are just getting our sea legs back for working on these loftier goals, we need to prioritize starting. Meaning that when we set out to do something for the day, we need to make it as small as possible, making the activation energy required to start doing it so minimal that it would almost be harder not to do it. For instance, if we want to write a book, don't make the goal 1,000 words or a page. Those feel almost impossible, but instead make it 1 minute or 5 minutes of just dumping some ideas onto the page. The idea is to just get your fingers moving. And then most crucially, once we have chosen that small task to get us started, we want to actually schedule it into our calendar. And when the time comes, no excuses, drop everything and do that task. I swear that starting is a muscle, which for most of us is atrophied and weak because we haven't used it. Now the good thing is we can build back up that muscle, and after a few days of just starting the task, you will find it much easier to get into a a rhythm and pick up from where you left off at the last session. And crucially important is to allow yourself to stop at any point. If you hit a wall, if you don't feel like doing it, you can stop, but only once you have started. See, the key is that this isn't forced labor. This should be something that we want to do. And as soon as we have framed it as something that we have to do, that's where we'll get that internal pushback, which makes us make no progress. And eventually, once we've built up that muscle, it will be our secret weapon. Even if we're only getting 1 minute a day, the compounding on that is absurd. So let's say you write for 1 minute every day. Maybe you get out a sentence, 20 words. Over the course of the year, that's 7,600 words. And the average book has about 75,000. So you're getting through a book in a decade, which sounds pretty miserable until you realize that over the course of your life, that's 5 or 6 books that wouldn't have been written otherwise. And remember, that's only if you're putting in 1 minute a day. What if you did 2, 5, 10, or an hour? And if you followed the steps in this video, you should have ample space to allow you to just start. Thanks for watching. Let me know which tip you like the most and subscribe for more.